The banner of the Crimson Reach did not flap in the wind. It bled against the charcoal sky. Woven from heavy, light-devouring silk and dyed in the dark, coppery hue of dried arterial blood, it bore the insignia of a headless executioner holding a burning brand. To the fragile kingdoms of the south, it was a flag of terror, a declaration that civilization ended where the Reach began. To the warlords and beasts lurking in the jagged peaks, it was a death sentence. Beneath that flag rode Lord Kalen. He was a man carved from perpetual midnight, clad in blackened, notched steel plate and a heavy, salt-stained cloak that swallowed the pale moonlight. Kalen looked less like a lord and more like an apparition of judgment. His face was forever concealed beneath the deep cowl of his hood, a shroud that hid not just his features, but a truth so corrosive it would have shattered the minds of anyone foolish enough to gaze upon it. Beneath him strode his mount, a monstrous, war-bred stallion whose breath plumed in freezing, dark wisps, and whose eyes burned with an unnatural, electric blue glow. It was a beast born of glacial abysses, moving with a silent, earth-shattering power. And yet, Kalen did not ride alone. No one in the Reach ever saw her approach, yet everyone knew she was there. Lyra was Kalen's shadow, his absolute counterpart. Where he was iron, obsidian, and overwhelming force, she was smoke, silence, and the administration of absolute quiet. While the realm believed her to be merely a high-ranking scout or a myth born of tavern gossip, only Kalen knew the horrifying architecture of her past, and why she was bound to him by blood oaths forged in the underworld.
The cinema opens with a sweeping, wide-angle cinematic shot of the Crimson Reach, jagged obsidian mountains cutting through a bruised, violet fog. The wind howls like a chorus of condemned souls. Inside a ruined stone watchtower overlooking the border, a dying fire casts long, frantic shadows. Kalen sits on an overturned stone block, sharpening a heavy, jagged-edged broadsword. The rhythmic swing of the whetstone is the only sound in the freezing ruin. From the darkest corner of the ceiling, completely silent, a figure drops. Lyra lands softly as a falling leaf, her dark leather armor blending seamlessly with the soot-stained masonry. She doesn't walk, she drifts. The border posts at Iron Gate have gone cold, Lyra murmurs, her voice like ice sliding over glass. No signs of struggle, no blood, just emptiness. The sentries vanished mid-breath. Kalen stops sharpening his blade. He does not look up, but his grip on the hilt tightens until his knuckles turn white under his leather gauntlets. "It's not beasts," he says, his voice deep, gravelly, and echoing with an unnatural resonance. "It's the Ashen Choir." Lyra steps closer, the firelight catching the cold, sharp edge of the twin daggers crossed at her lower back. "They've found us then. They know what we buried beneath the western ridge." "They know," Kalen replies, standing slowly to his full, imposing height, towering over her like a monolith of doom. "And they want the key. But to get to it, they had to go through the Reach. And the Reach answers only to the Blood Banner." The narrative shifts gears into a breathtaking sequence of tactical dread. Kalen and Lyra ride out at the head of a storm. The dark red flag of the Crimson Reach flutters behind them, casting a long, blood-red shadow across the snow-choked valleys. They arrive at Iron Gate. The fortress is eerily silent. The massive iron portcullis stands wide open. Inside, the courtyard is frozen in time. Campfires still burn, but the soldiers are gone, leaving behind only their discarded weapons and a fine layer of gray, bone-like ash frosting the cobblestones. Suddenly, the temperature plummets violently. The blue flames of Kalen's steed flare up, casting wild, dancing shadows across the high stone walls. "Trap," Lyra whispers, her daggers flashing into her hands in a blur of motion. She vanishes into the shadows of the gatehouse wall just as the darkness above them begins to writhe. From the parapets, hundreds of spectral figures, the Ashen Choir, drop into the courtyard. They are hollow, translucent entities wrapped in tattered burial shrouds, their faces featureless voids of white fire. They wield weapons of crystallized sorrow, moving with a terrifying, synchronized grace. What follows is an expertly choreographed masterclass in duo combat. Kalen is the juggernaut. He wades into the center of the courtyard like a force of nature. Every swing of his greatsword shatters spectral armor into glittering shards of ice. When the spirits swarm him, he unleashes a wave of dark, concussive aura from his chest, blasting dozens of them back against the stone walls, where they disintegrate into nothingness. His skeletal horse rears up, its blue eyes flashing blindingly, crushing phantom skulls beneath iron-shod hooves. Lyra is the phantom. Operating in Kalen's blind spots, she is invisible death. She dances through the periphery of the chaos, her daggers slicing through the ethereal anchors of the spirit leaders. She moves with such fluid velocity that she leaves trails of dark smoke in her wake. Whenever Kalen is flanked by a greater wraith, Lyra drops from above, driving her blades into its spiritual core with lethal precision. They do not speak. They do not need to. Years of war, shared trauma, and an unshakable, unspoken pact have synchronized their souls. They are a single, unstoppable organism of death and shadow. With the courtyard cleared of the spectral horde, the heavy iron doors of the inner keep groan open. A figure steps out, not a ghost, but a flesh and blood man clad in robes of tarnished silver. It is High Prelate Vane, a man from Kalen's long-forgotten past, before the Crimson Reach was even mapped. Kalen, Vane sneers, his voice echoing with wicked amusement. Still hiding behind your little pet assassin and your bloody rag of a flag? You can't bury what we started in the catacombs of Oakhaven. The world needs to know what you two did to save your skins. Lyra freezes. For the first time, her lethal composure cracks. A flicker of raw, agonizing terror crosses her face. She looks at Kalen. Kalen slowly raises his hand and lowers his hood. The camera lingers on the reveal. Not just a scarred face, but a face branded with the arcane marks of a soulbinder, cursed to house the very entity they destroyed a decade ago. Kalen's eyes are not human. They are swirling galaxies of black smoke and dying stars. They don't need to know. Vane, Kalen speaks, and the ground beneath the fortress begins to fracture, glowing with a deep, crimson heat. Because the moment that secret leaves your lips, the seal breaks. And I am no longer holding the monster back, I am the monster. Vane laughs maniacally, raising a dagger to plunge it into his own heart to unleash the curse upon the world. Before the blade can descend, a thin, dark line cuts through the air. Lyra's dagger has pierced Vane's throat with pinpoint accuracy. The prelate gasps, dropping his weapon as he collapses backward into the snow, choking on his own blood, his eyes wide with shock as the life drains from him. The silence returns to the courtyard, heavier and more absolute than before. Dawn tries to break over the Crimson Reach, but the thick, violet-red clouds of the region refuse to let the sunlight touch the ground. The dark red flag flutters softly in the chilling morning breeze. Kalen stands at the edge of the highest cliff, looking out over the endless, mist-shrouded valleys of his domain. His hood is pulled back up, concealing his cursed face once more. Lyra stands a few paces behind him, leaning against the massive stone parapet, wiping a trace of blood from her blade with a strip of dark cloth. He's dead, Lyra says quietly, her voice steady once more. The secret stays with us. Always, Kalen replies, his deep voice carrying over the abyss. He mounts his glowing-eyed steed, and Lyra dissolves smoothly into the long shadows cast by the morning cliffs. Side by side, unseen by the world they protect and feared by the lands they rule, the ultimate duo turns away from the edge and rides back into the dark heart of the Crimson Reach. The cinematic score swells, a deep, low cello drone building into a relentless, driving percussion rhythm. The camera pans low, tracking the heavy iron-shod hooves of the skeletal warhorse as it carves through the frost-bitten mud of the borderlands. Kalen sits immovable in the saddle, his posture like iron. The heavy, dark red flag of the Crimson Reach trails behind them, snapping violently in the gale-force winds of the high plateau. Every fold of the banner seems to absorb the dying light, casting a blood-tinted shadow over the barren earth. A few yards to their flank, moving with terrifyingly fluid grace, is Lyra. She does not touch the ground, instead, her dark leather boots skim the tops of frozen heather, her presence so quiet that even the biting mountain wind seems to part around her. The ambush at the Whispering Gorge. Without a single word passing between them, Kalen pulls his horse to an abrupt halt. The beast's electric blue eyes flare brightly in the gloom, its breath venting in dark, freezing steam. Lyra vanishes instantly, melting into the vertical shadow of a jagged cliff face. From the mist-choked depths of the whispering gorge ahead, a low, metallic scraping sound echoes. Then come the glowing yellow eyes. Dozens of them. A rival warband. The Iron Fang Marauders, corrupted mercenaries seeking the bounty on Kalen's head, emerges from the fog. They are heavily armored, wielding jagged polearms and shields embossed with rusted skulls. "Lord Kalen," shouts their commander, a hulking brute with a scarred face, stepping forward. "The reach is finished. Hand over the banner and the girl, and we'll let your soul leave your body intact." Kalen does not answer. He slowly reaches down and rests his gauntleted hand upon the hilt of his greatsword. The silence stretches for a single, breathless second. Then, Kalen's horse lets out a deafening, unearthly shriek that shakes loose stones from the cliffside. The symphony of destruction. The battle explodes into motion with kinetic, visceral fury. The first strike. Kalen spurs his mount forward, transforming into a human avalanche. He swings his greatsword in a wide, horizontal arc, catching the front line of marauders. The impact shatters shields and sends armor flying like paper in a hurricane. The shadows embrace. From above, Lyra drops directly into the center of the enemy's rear flank. Her daggers flash in the gloom, striking with surgical precision at the soft points in the marauder's armor. She weaves between attackers like smoke, her movements completely silent save for the dull thud of bodies hitting the frozen earth. The aura unleashed. As three elite swordsmen surround Kalen, trying to pin his arms, he releases a concentrated burst of his cursed aura. A wave of dark, freezing pressure ripples outward. The ground beneath the marauders cracks open with a spiderweb of glowing crimson fissures, throwing the fighters backward into the abyss. Within minutes, the gorge falls dead silent once more. Only the whistling wind and the heavy panting of the surviving horses remain. Kalen dismounts, his heavy steel boots crunching on the frost. He walks over to the fallen commander, who is gasping for air against a moss-covered boulder. Lyra steps out from the shadows, her daggers clean of blood, her expression unreadable behind her lowered cowl. "They won't stop coming," Lyra says quietly, her voice cutting through the wind. "As long as the banner flies, every mercenary and zealot from the lowlands will try to claim it." Kalen looks down at the dying commander, then reaches up to adjust the heavy fabric of his hood, ensuring the swirling, cosmic void of his face remains hidden from the mortal world. "Let them come," Kalen replies, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "They are hunting a ghost, Lyra. And ghosts cannot be killed." He turns back to his horse, grasping the staff of the dark red flag and hoisting it high into the air. The banner catches the wind, snapping with a sound like a cracking whip, casting its menacing red aura across the desolate horizon. Lyra mounts her own sleek, dark steed, pulling alongside him. Without looking back, the duo rides deeper into the fog, vanishing into the legend they built together, two souls bound by an eternal, unbreakable dark secret, guarding a world that will never understand them.